outside looking in at me pre BP, before psychedelics,
Right.
I'd look like a successful entrepreneur. I'd built a bunch of companies, made some money, had a lot of employees, and by kind of all outward measures, I was successful. But what I kept realizing with is that it wasn't bringing me internal happiness. Like at one point, I remember saying, "Oh, when I have 100 employees, that's gonna be a big day. Okay, when I have 500 employees, that's gonna be a big day. When I have a building with my company name on it." Those days kept coming, and life just got more complicated as it got bigger. So that's kind of one path to think about. So my realization that as an entrepreneur, as a building business for business sake, wasn't satisfying. The other thing that your audience probably should know is my mom died when she was 49. I was a year out of college. My father had actually died when I was in college. So I had those kind of big holes that were early on holes, but as a typical guy, I put those into a drawer and moved on. Um, and just kind of lived with it. Missed my mom, but lived with it. Because what are you gonna do? And that was my attitude. And then one other thing that had happened, I wrote about in my book, was I had an inappropriate sexual contact with someone 10 years older than me, family member 10 years older than me when I was an early teenager.
Hmm.
And that was also one of those where that was a mortifying experience that I just never talked about, couldn't talk about it, and just carried that around. And psychedelic medicine for me allowed me to heal with my mom and heal on this experience, and just that's just starting the post psychedelic me and all the different healings and optimizations and things that have occurred since psychedelics.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Mental Purpose Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Lobas. Look, today is going to be a great episode because it's different than what you're used to. However, it still has the same components, which is awesome. Today, I'm talking to Matt Zemon about psychedelics. In the first 40 minutes of this conversation, though, are going to be around men's growth and development, both Matt's and mine. And what's interesting about it is we're going to get into topics that so many of you write to me about and reach out to me on Instagram about. So many of you that I work with are facing the same thing. We're talking about love, acceptance, and safety in who you are and using the outside world to try and find what's missing. We're going to be talking about removing the shame, the blame, and the guilt for wanting to align with who you really are, your authentic self, and find that purpose that you're meant to have on this planet, right? Why you're here and who you actually are. And we're going to talk about living with and finding and aligning with that purpose. We're going to be talking about healthy relationships with your parents and clearing the past. We're going to be talking about providing for the family and how this providing piece has been bred into us. We're going to be talking about being productive versus being busy. We're going to talk about what really is internal security. You know, we talk about financial security. Matt and I are going to talk about internal security. We're going to talk about being radically different, external validation, and how it's misleading, and how we get to a certain point at a certain age, most of us, and we hit this wall where we understand that it could be different, yet only a few of us actually take the path and the necessary action steps to start down that journey of actually finding internal validation, internal happiness. We're going to talk about removing the internal restrictions and constraints that have been holding you back, or frankly, you've been allowing to hold you back. You guys have heard me talk about that a lot before. I mean, that's what we do here at Mental Purpose. All the curriculum, that's all empowering you to help yourself or to help free you of that internal restriction and constraint that you are facing every day, not being aligned, feeling trapped, feeling like you've got to provide, feeling like your purpose is something that is not what it truly is. So look, there are a lot of things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about compassion, connectivity to others, and then we start talking about plant medicine. And all along the way, Matt and I are going to share our journeys and our stories and experiences with plant medicine and how it was helpful for us. I'm going to tell you right now that plant medicine for me helped me to understand compassion for myself, trust for myself, and compassion and trust for others more than I ever thought was possible. And it's actually a really beautiful thing, a really beautiful thing. We're going to be talking about emotions, talking about fears. We're going to talk about regret. The plant medicine piece has certain stipulations or fears or understandings with it. We're going to clear some of those up. And Matt's going to tell some really honest, really hard-hitting stories that I know most of you are going to be able, really honestly, all of you are going to be able to associate with and learn a ton from this episode. So stick with it. It's a long one. We get into plant medicine at about the 40-minute mark. Don't miss that first 40 minutes. There is a lot of gold there. So look, let's get it wrapped. Let's get you into the interview. Anything you need, menonpurpose.net is our website, menonpurpose.net, whether it's our coaching programs, our curriculum, our masterminds, our retreats, any of our free products, any of our courses, it's all on there, menonpurpose.net. It's being updated and upgraded on a daily basis. So by the time you hear this, it's different than when I'm describing today. Need free stuff, don't know where to get started, just raise your hand. All you got to do is raise your hand, ask a question and say, hey, where do I get started? How do I do this? You've motivated me, you've inspired me, whatever it might be. And we will help you on your journey, even if it's just to get started. So thank you for being here. Appreciate you. If you haven't yet joined our community, the MOP, Mental Purpose Facebook community, join that. If you haven't yet rated and reviewed the podcast, go do that. Check out our YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram. We've got a ton of reels, ton of content coming out on there. Love you all, and enjoy this episode. All right, Matt, one of my favorite topics, because there's so much that's possible from psychedelics, and there's so much in the world of psychedelics that we just don't know. And I think that frontier, or whatever you want to call it sounds super cheesy to say it like that. I think that is what fascinates me. And I've got a good amount of experience in this, and I'm really excited to learn from you and the audience, to learn from you with your expertise on this topic. And we're gonna go through so many different things today. First things first, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for joining me.
Ian, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on. This is I'm excited with the enthusiasm which you're approaching this topic.
Sweet, man. I love it. And I want to take the audience back to the man you used to be. Well, let's say before BP, right? Before psychedelics, or before just an awakening or anything that you've realized about your life, your purpose. Who were you back then? And then let's work ourselves through that. So just take us back to a darker time, or like a past pain that you were going through, where you made this shift into, I'm going to do the work on me. I've got to make this commitment. And then just lead us through that journey.
Oh, glad you asked that question. Fantastic question. Let's, but also a very hard question. So
Right.
I'm going to answer it a couple of different ways. So from outside looking in at me BP, before psychedelics,
Right.
I'd look like a successful entrepreneur. I'd built a bunch of companies, made some money, had a lot of employees, and by kind of all outward measures, I was successful. But what I kept realizing is that it wasn't bringing me internal happiness. Like at one point, I remember saying, "Oh, when I have 100 employees, that's gonna be a big day. Okay, when I have 500 employees, that's gonna be a big day. When I have a building with my company name on it." Those days kept coming, and life just got more complicated as it got bigger. So that's kind of one path to think about. So my realization that as an entrepreneur, as a building business for business sake, wasn't satisfying. The other thing that your audience probably should know is my mom died when she was 49. I was a year out of college. My father had actually died when I was in college. So I had those kind of big holes that were early on holes, but as a typical guy, I put those into a drawer and moved on. And just kind of lived with it. Missed my mom, but lived with it. Because what are you going to do? And that was my attitude. And then one other thing that had happened, I wrote about in my book, was I had an inappropriate sexual contact with someone 10 years older than me, family member 10 years older than me when I was an early teenager.
Hmm.
And that was also one of those where that was a mortifying experience that I just never talked about, couldn't talk about it. And just carried that around. And psychedelic medicine for me allowed me to heal with my mom and heal on this experience. And just that's just starting the post psychedelic me and all the different healings and optimizations and things that have occurred since psychedelics.
What's interesting is that first example you gave is probably the number one thing that I hear from guys is I've achieved this level of success and it didn't do what I thought it was going to do for me. It's not hitting me, it's not fueling me, it's not satisfying me, fulfilling me. Just add your own, I'm going to guess they're an adjective or verb. Add your own adjective in there. And I think guys at a certain age or a certain experience level hit this wall where money, it doesn't buy anything more. No more time, no more advancement, no more fulfillment, no more escape, no more avoid. And they hit this realization of, oh my gosh, like I'm going to have to face something that money can't get me away from anymore. I'm going to have to face something that I've been avoiding for maybe my whole life. And that is a hard realization. I remember in my real estate career, every morning I'd get up cashing $100,000 checks a month sometimes and going, this isn't it. This can't be it. This can't be it for my life. This can't be what I do. If I die tomorrow, I will have made no impact on this planet. Zero, except I have a child, right? I have a daughter at that time. I had just a daughter. And I kept thinking, well, that's my contribution. And then somebody challenged me and said, is your contribution really the child? Or was that God / the universe's decision to bring that child onto the world? You really didn't have a choice except for the choice of the sexual act, right? Let's just say. Now you're meant for bigger. So why don't you put this, my kid is my purpose, my family is my purpose, my money, my business is my purpose, and go find your real purpose. And that led me into it led me into a spiral of really like that. Making money and providing for your family isn't your main mission in life. How is that not it? And my journey at that point begins in January of 2018, the first time I did ayahuasca. So this is a very appropriate conversation because my world was opened with psychedelics. And I'm not sure if I would have found the answers deep down inside of me for years if I hadn't have done that. And I thought it was, well, I'll get it faster. That was my thought process. I'll get it faster. I'll get it faster, right? Yet what I learned was such depth that I didn't even know I had, that it shocked me and scared the shit out of me, frankly. So we are in, and the audience is in good company among guys that have built something and realized that it wasn't why they were here. What's up, guys? I'm so sorry to interrupt the episode. I just need 1 minute to share with you all the new and exciting, amazing stuff we've got created here at Men on Purpose. First of all, thank you for listening to the podcast and supporting the movement we're creating for all the men in the world. Next, you've got to check out our new website, menonpurpose.net, where you'll find all kinds of cool stuff, including links to our podcast and the free Men on Purpose community. You're also going to find our new free purpose-driven formula mini course and ebook, and links to all of our new coaching programs and products. Look, I've had so many of you ask me where to get started with your personal growth journey or where you can go to level up. So I put this thing together, this free ebook and mini course, and we're going to be talking about and coaching you through a really light version of our purpose-driven formula, which is our foundational formula. And for those of you who are ready now, we got you. Listen up, whether it's becoming the best husband, being the best dad, quitting that job that doesn't serve you, or just understanding how to put you first, we've got what you need to align with your authentic self and find that true fulfillment and live a life with no regrets. Look, we're helping men with structure, support, and sustainability. That's what you've asked for, and that's what we deliver. As we lead you through proven and tested curriculum that focuses on formulas to help you get farther faster. So make sure you go to menonpurpose.net, click the button to download our free, powerful, purpose-driven formula mini course and ebook. And while you're there, make sure you check out some of our amazing products designed to help you find your purpose, stop self-sabotage, and dial in your mindset, skills, and habits to evolve into the best version of you. Why? Because we want you to live and have the best life possible. No regrets. So, mentalpurpose.net. Let's get back to the episode.
Without a doubt. And that, and thank you for sharing all that. That notion of I'm going to get it faster. I mean, there is an expression in psychedelics that for many people, it's like getting years of therapy in hours and days, versus years. But I think it is what the big surprise is.
Yeah.
Is like, what is the results, or how do you rethink your time on this planet? And psychedelic medicine for many people is a catalyst or is a key to unlocking some of that. So I don't believe it's a cure, but I do believe it's a catalyst.
Yeah. What about the part you mentioned with your parents and then passing on, and then the family member situation? What we're talking about is emotional registration, right? If we could generalize it, these are emotional registrations that we have been taught to push down, escape from, avoid, not deal with, or not express. So how long was it between all those things happening that you actually got into doing the work on you?
Yeah, it was 25 years. I mean, it was a long time. So
25 years afterward.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. It was I missed my mom for a long time.
Wow.
And in the psychedelic experience, she was there, and I could see her and I could feel her, and I could kind of pull the connection from her to me to my kids and realize, like, oh my goodness, all right, I am her moving forward and they are me moving forward. And we might have different shapes, but we are all connected. And it was such an incredible feeling. The other, and this is the first psychedelic experience. The other thing that was such a shock was feeling just complete love, acceptance, and safety. And realizing, like, oh my gosh, I don't feel loved and safe and accepted in my normal life. And then it was, oh my God, I actually can't remember ever feeling this loved and safe and accepted. And that was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So I'm living my life with this weight of the world on my shoulders, and I don't even know it. And then once you see that, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Or I can't unsee it. So then it led to a whole bunch of change and seeking for additional answers, additional clarity, additional support.
What's really interesting is that the experience that I've had, you've had, many men, let's say successful men, and your measurement of success, guys, can be anything you want. I mean, money is this big one that most people measure from. It's not even the main one. It's just a measurement. And what's interesting is my career from probably 20 years old to 36 years old, 38 years old. Well, 4 years ago. So 36 years old, 16 years was based on those three things that you just named: love, safety, and acceptance. Except throw approval in there, right? Throw approval in there. And like, I'm successful. I'm approved of. Okay, good. I don't have that inside of me. So I'll seek this from the outside. And as long as you give it to me, this is cool. Forget about me and the inside. And I want to get your opinion on that. Where were you in all of these things that you were doing, being successful, running the company? Were you aware of the you not being satisfied, felt, heard, seen, and just okay with putting that away? Or did you fight that every day? Or how did that come?
I was aware that I wasn't satisfied, that building business for business sake was not fulfilling me. I didn't know how to get fulfilled. I've been married now for 23 years. I have a 19 and a 17-year-old child. But I knew something was missing and I just didn't know what. There was this first experience where it's like, okay, I don't feel enough love in myself that I can't give that out. And I don't feel that unless I'm doing something that I need to earn approval.
Yeah.
Um, but through psychedelic medicine, it's like, no, 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 no. You are enough right now. You are loved right now. And just go, just be. And that it was such an incredible um, relief to know that I don't need anyone to approve of anything I do. That it's all okay.
Why is that so hard for people to get? Why is that so hard of a concept for people to wrap their head around?
I mean, I think we live in a society where we're taught from very early on that what we think and what we feel is not okay. I want to run around and play. Nope, you're going to sit in a line and you're going to learn these things that I want to teach you. Well, I'm interested in this thing. Nope, it's not time to learn about that thing. It's learning about this thing.
Yeah.
And we're told that other people know best and other people are the ones who determine what we do when we do it. Makes sense. I mean, that's part of the industrial revolution and what we're trying to build productive people to fit into the machine. But I think at its core, it takes apart our own confidence in ourself and our own confidence that we know what we need and we know what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And we don't need to go work in a factory. We don't need all the things that we're told we need that keeps us working to go get those things. So
Yeah.
you have to unwind a lot of thread to get back to that, but
Yeah.
that we don't need most of what we think we need.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the there's so many questions I have for you and about psychedelics, and I want to make sure that we have this conversation because I think this is going to set up really good foundation. The the in business, was there something that happened to obviously those three things that you mentioned in your earlier life, and then 20, 25 years later, is there something that happened in your business or in your life that kind of was like a kick to the face? Here's how I associate it. It's like the like you're in ice, like you're encased in ice. This is what I saw first time that I did psilocybin, is that I was encased in ice, and that the the medicine was speaking to me and saying, like, I was actually encased in ice, seeing
Hmm.
myself from the outside, and this voice just kept saying, just kick it, just kick it. And like I was terrified to release myself from that self-imposed prison, by the way, self-imposed from me accepting these societal norms and rules of masculinity or whatever, provider or whatever it might be. And I was terrified to free myself from that, from the ice, whatever you want to call it, imprisonment that I was in. And it wasn't because I was afraid that it would hurt or that it was something. I remember thinking and feeling, I have no idea who I'll be without that restriction and constraint
Mm-hmm.
on me. I won't have this back pressure to push against every day. And if I'm more free to just operate, what will my life be like? What will I be like? Will my wife still love me? Will my kids still know me? Will my parents still talk to me? And it's like an engine. If it doesn't have back pressure, it's not going to produce what it can produce. Yet there are some engines that, through regulations and smog and things like that, they can still produce a lot of horsepower. They just don't produce as much performance as if they were unrestricted. And I started thinking about that while in this ceremony. And it took me 2 ceremonies to actually kick the ice, like kick myself. And the ice shattered. And I remember feeling terrified at that moment that the real me was now exposed. And this real me was going to have to do something with my life that was more than just make money. It was more than just provide and produce. And that was the scariest shit I think I'd ever dealt with up to that point.
Because it's probably easy for you to produce resources.
Yeah.
I would imagine a lot of your audience. It's we know we're able to make money. That is something that we've always been able to do. We've been recognized and thanked and appreciated and accolades for making money. So that's the easy thing to do. It's much harder to look at yourself and say, okay, I want to make sure that I'm living each day with awareness. I want to make sure I'm living each day with purpose. I want to make sure I'm living each day actually loving the people that I'm connected with. I want to make sure I live each day um, being love and spreading that love.
Yeah.
That's harder, and that's way harder for me. It sounds like it was harder for you. I love that experience that you went through. I mean, that's beautiful to have the
Yeah.
and I think for your listeners who are not familiar with psychedelic medicine, it's not that someone said, "Oh, you're going to be surrounded in a block of ice and you're going to kick it."
Right. Right.
You were surrounded by ice and you
Yeah.
literally kicked it and opened yourself to the environment,
Yeah.
and you knew it and you felt it. It wasn't just a visual hallucination. It was
Oh
a
no.
feeling, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because in that moment, that is all there is.
Yeah.
And I there have been a lot of people that have asked me about psychedelics and my experience, and I'll say, look, you have to understand, it's not this high that you go and get and then enjoy yourself on. It's a different mindset and intentionality, and I wasn't used to that. I'd never done any psychedelics or any type of hallucinogens before 2018, and um and being in that moment, I think maybe one of the scariest things that I was experiencing was, is this now my life? Like,
Hmm.
is this now my new reality? And isn't that amazing that it is scarier to think about our own purpose, our own authentic self, our own, mission, and having to move away from that program that we've been uh, maybe since birth. I'm sure at some point in the very early months, you're starting that program of performance and productivity, and because think about it, like, it's tummy time and crawling and speaking and walking, and like you're always hitting this next milestone. Then all of a sudden, the only measurement, like we were talking about earlier, becomes money, and then so you start hitting milestones with money: the car, the house, the career, the climb, the new office, the new car, the new house, the next vacation. And all of a sudden you're 65, 75 years old going, oh my God, what just happened to my life? I'm
Well,
not
take
sure.
it. I would encourage you to take it one more step,
Yeah.
and so now you're a baby. Go back to that side, and there's all these issues even as a baby with trying to win and keep your mom's love and affection, your father's love and affection, and for all of us, there were different levels and ability to deliver that love and affection by our parents,
Yeah.
and we started choosing behaviors to secure that.
Yeah.
And well after those behaviors, well after we probably knew that those behaviors didn't work, and well after we knew that maybe our parents weren't capable of loving us the way that we wanted to be loved, but we still kept trying. And then we carried those forward into our marriages and relationships and children. And if we don't pause and say, huh, I didn't realize I did that, and I got that from this,
Yeah.
there's no way to break it. But again, psychedelic medicine for a lot of us can really help you look back at both the traumatic experiences and this relationship with the parents, and remove the shame, blame, and guilt, and just look at it and be like, oh, okay. So my mom was having challenges with her marriage, and I was feeling scared in this situation, and she was bringing this behavior on from when she was a kid. And yeah, that she was doing the best that she knew how to do,
Yeah.
but it didn't feel that way to me at the time.
No, certainly not. You're talking about programming through generations.
Of course.
Now, are we
Sure.
talking about, oh my God, I just blanked on the name, epigenetics? Or are
Could
we
be.
talking about just in the mother to you
It's
versus
all of the above. And
all
we
of it?
can
Okay.
go, it's how far do you want to go? And we can, yes, we could talk about this is multiple lives. And when you're healing yourself, some people believe you're healing 7 lives backwards and 7 lives forwards.
Yeah.
But even if we just for the sake of this and your audience, we just focus on the relationships that we all had with our parents,
Yeah.
um, and trying to unpack that. So you talked. I'll give a personal example that so if by all accounts, my father was an awful father. He was a
Mm.
raging alcoholic. He would have these fits of rage. He was very unpredictable, um, complete womanizer. Um, I mean, my parents got divorced going when I was going into first grade, and every weekend we were with our father. There'd be a different woman at the house. It
Huh.
was it was yeah, easy to say, probably not the best role model. Um, and what did that do for me? So a lot of entrepreneurs or people who are successful in business were early promoters or promoted early in life. So in my case, I was the peacemaker, and I'm going to try to make sure that with the time with our dad is as quiet and as safe as possible for me and my sister. My grandmother was there a bunch too, and trying to keep things calm for her. Um, Trying to problem solve, trying to, whether it's hiding alcohol or let's not go and drive, or all those types of things, early promoted in life to solve problems. What has been shocking to me to look back, after psychedelics, is what was my mom's role in all of this, and saying, okay, well, wait a minute, he was driving drunk constantly, and we told her, and yet we still had to go for the weekends.
Hmm.
That's interesting. Would I make that same decision now with my kids? No,
No.
but that's where she was at that time for a variety of reasons. Um, and I hope, again, I'm not trying to by any way say my mom was not a good mom. She was
Sure.
just not a perfect mom, as nobody is.
Yeah.
Um, but it was interesting to see their roles, and then take it one more step. What's my role in all of this? Did I create this situation to have this? So because this is who I am on the inside, and I needed to have a role at that time of life. So I needed drama. Um, yeah, I mean, you can keep spending this in all sorts of different directions. Um, and again, psychedelic medicine has given me a place to really dive in, to look at things, and then the integration process after the psychedelic medicine. Let's keep unpacking this and unraveling this and talking about this, and where else can this go?
Yeah. The thing I think about a lot is my wife and I talk about this constantly. Until you understand or know what you didn't know, I think
Mhm.
all of us think we had a pretty great childhood, pretty perfect childhood. Even my kids right now, who I think I'm giving them a really amazing childhood, are going to be like, I thought I had a perfect childhood until I realized that that wasn't a good thing, or that was scary to me, or whatever it might be. And the combining of the performance piece, or like how you were promoted, at a young age, or what was promoted, and that business or money piece that solves so many challenges. And I've talked to a lot of guys about this, and we equate it. Somebody asked me once, and I just said, dude, it's like your life is a piece of shit on a table, right? Just think about this. Except you know that, yet the rest of the world doesn't see that. They see it in the shiny candy coating that you've put on it, with luxury car badges, and with, the vacations you take, and the houses you buy, and the portfolio you have, and the net worth you have. Yet really all we're talking about is a candy coated piece of shit. Total, right? And I'm not saying that your life is is total shit. I'm saying that you know that there are many parts, the big ones, that are not as good as they could be, yet you're not willing to do any work to actually make them any different, i.e. change the formula, right?
Oh,
Change
and we'll justify it. We'll justify it all
totally.
day long. The
Yeah.
perfect example here is when I was building a software company, I was gone 3 nights a week for years.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but I'm providing for my family. I'm giving them a great education, a great house, great this. If you ask my kids if it was worth it, there's no way. They would say,
No.
absolutely not. We would much rather have you been home than you have chosen that. And then we come back to and tying in not only to purpose, but to accountability. It was my fault. I chose that company. I chose to do this away from home. I chose to pursue this money. I chose to not be present for my kids and my wife.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother why. That's a whole nother thing to unravel. But but to your point, from the outside, it looked like candy coated life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the hard part is, and I want to go back and I want to unravel that as you said, and just want to just put this on. The hard part in my experience was that I was watching guys with candy coated lives, and I was emulating that, and I was saying, cool, that's a model, that's what I want. They have what I want. Yet what they had was more stuff to make them feel better about this candy coated life, right? And how I was chasing after that, thinking that's what I want, and when I get there, it'll be amazing, and my life will be this crazy, beautiful, amazing life that I've always dreamed is possible. Yet the formula that I was running was not the formula that could get that accomplished. It could get all the stuff, yet it wasn't the formula to get me to be the best version of me, which meant when I finally get there, in quotes, that I'll actually be happy sitting somewhere at peace for a second and not running and grinding and hustling and doing all this stuff that is constant movement yet lacks achievement. You know what I mean? So I want to go back and unpack that piece of, because you and I have that, and many of the people listening have that same life experience, where my wife would say to me, you keep saying that you're running the race for us, yet when you have a chance to stop at a checkpoint and grab a cup of water, like Race Reference, or spend a second with us just celebrating this next milestone, you run right past us. So the talk was there, and I'm doing this for my family, I'm providing for my family, I'm building legacy, I'm building generational wealth, and all the bullshit that comes along with that hollow wording. Yet when I actually had a chance to slow down and be with them, I chose other things, which means I was completely out of alignment, and I was completely off on my goal of, I'm providing for my family, I just want my family to be together and have the best experiences together. I wasn't there.
Right. And for me, and I'm not saying this about you, but for me, because even if that's what I vocalized was my goal, it wasn't my goal. Because if it was my goal, I would have been doing it. I had different motivations and different different pursuits to achieve those motivations. The idea of sitting still is just something that it's so, even now with all the, I mean, as a person with a meditation practice, there are still pieces of sitting still that I find uncomfortable.
What is it?
I don't know, like the idea of a beach vacation where you just sit on the beach and relax is, in theory, lovely.
Me too.
I don't last an hour. It's like, I gotta go do something, anything. I can read for long periods of time, but not on I'm interested in too many things. I'm curious about too many things, and
I want to pick your brain on that.
Sure, tell me.
What do you think? What do you think that is? I'm going to give you my idea just for my own life. There's this finite amount of time we have, right? It's pretty finite, and there is no understanding. Yeah,
define
as
it
humans.
as yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If we back up and say we're spiritual beings in a
Right.
human incarnation, we have infinite time. But yes,
Yes.
as humans in this form,
In
we have
this
finite
form,
time.
yep. In
Yes.
this body, there is only this period that we are here,
Yes.
and there is no understanding of what that opposite end is. So there's a part of me that says, is this what I want to do for my life in this moment? Sit on this beach and stare at these waves in this moment. Is that good enough? So that if I wasn't here tomorrow and this was my last moment, would I be at peace with that? And I think about like, is it worth it to me? Is it worthwhile for me to do that? Is this something that I should be spending my time on? Those are the things that go on in my head. Even in the beginning with my daughter's almost 7. And so it's a very different world today here. However, back then it was, I mean, do I really want to sit with a 6-month-old baby for the next 3 hours? I mean, there's stuff I need to do. So I would grab my laptop and be productive while with my daughter so that I didn't face this future regret, or this, really, it's the pain of the future regret that I was really running from in that moment and processing all this craziness. For you,
That's
what is it?
interesting.
What
Well,
is
I
it?
want to stick on the 6-month. For me, with a 6-month-old child, it was, I don't add any value. Like, I can't do anything. What am I going to do with this child? And I didn't realize that just loving the child was all the value I needed to add. But I didn't see it at the time. So because I couldn't do anything, there wasn't any progress being made, I didn't feel it. And I avoided it. I'll be a better grandparent.
Yeah.
Than,
Yeah.
and then, but I'm sorry, I interrupted your question.
No, it's I appreciate the volley. This is my stream of consciousness, because this is something that I still kind of think about today. Like, my 40th birthday is in less than a month. And my whole 30s, I thought about my 40th birthday as like this extravaganza, crazy, blowing money. It's going to be for the ages. And all I think about today is just doing something by myself that challenges me, and then just being with me alone with no distractions, and saying to myself, you started your 30s terrified that you wouldn't be enough if you didn't make enough money or weren't successful enough. That all this made up bullshit in your head about your family 7 generations back are all entrepreneurs, and if you don't become an entrepreneur, you're a loser, and you're going to let the whole family down, and all you're on their backs, and everything that they worked for. Crazy shit, right? Crazy. And now in 3 weeks from now, I'm gonna go to Utah, or I'm gonna go to Nevada, and I'm gonna just drive out into the desert for days by myself with no cell reception and no distractions, and I'm gonna be with me. And that actually is fully aligned and true for what I want to do. It's not yes, I'll be pushing myself a little bit through some things that I'm uncomfortable with. However, there really is nothing more, except for spending time with my kids, which I'll do before and after that moment, to start my next decade or my next year, doing something that is just completely non-distracted and present, is all I can think about. It's very strange from 10 years ago. Very strange. Very different.
But beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's what your body is calling for.
That's right.
So that sounds like a pretty incredible birthday.
It will be a very incredible birthday. Yeah. Go back to that. Like, think about all those habits that we've had built. I was just talking to somebody today about it, and he's like, how do I just make this shift? And I said, dude, you've spent 38 years. That's not how old he is, by the way. I'm just giving a number. You spent 38 years building this habit of grind and hustle. Now you're asking to be different one day later after you made a decision. It doesn't work like that. You're not just going to go. This is the same conversation I have with guys about financial freedom. Financial freedom isn't worth anything unless you have internal freedom, because you can't sit on that beach or be retired or go spend time with the family when you have built a habit of constantly moving to try and achieve something. You're not just going to all of a sudden get this money that hits this, high watermark in your bank account and go, got it, finally. I can now be the true me. I can be present. I can be thoughtful and compassionate and there for my wife and communicative about my feelings and emotions. And I'm 49 years old. Like it doesn't happen like that, you know? And so those are the things that I think about with being alone that are beneficial today versus like the beach story or like I was talking about before. I didn't want to be alone. I just didn't want to be there with my thoughts.
And that's I think what you're speaking to is intentionality. So just going
Yeah.
to the beach with the intention of I'm going to be here to be by myself. The waves, it doesn't matter what's around me. I'm just here to be by myself.
Yeah.
Okay, I could wrap myself around that kind of vacation. That's like it's
Yeah.
my silent retreat.
Right.
I've just
Right.
never approached the beach like that. I don't know why I'm picking the beach for this, but but yeah, it's the intentionality. I want to go out and be with my thoughts and move forward. Even you're talking about financial freedom, like again, so many layers of that onion, right? There's, well, what does it mean? What are you spending money on? Period. Why are you spending money on those things? What does security look like? What really is security? Um, and yeah, well, I mean that just trying to define what financial freedom means is such a tricky subject for so many people.
Yeah.
Um, I have found through taking everything back to psychedelics, but just the constant reminder of, I can generate resources. Of course I can. Of course. So don't worry. There's plenty out there. So you might not know exactly how, but you've all your life been able to generate resources. Of course you will.
Yeah.
So then it's like, what are you going to do with your time? And then how much of your time are you willing to trade for the resources you're curating,
Yeah.
or harvesting? And yeah, those are good questions. And that brings us back to the practice, the post psychedelic practice of thinking about these, reflecting on these, having someone to talk to about these questions, and someone who's not, it's not judgmental. It's just asking you back. This is what you said was important. This is what you're doing. I don't quite see how that's in alignment, but tell me more about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really compassionate way of putting that. You just said it so smooth. Like, this is what you want. This is what you have. Not seeing that it connects. So tell me what's going on for you. You know, like that's a beautiful way of confronting somebody and holding them to account. You know what I mean? It
Well,
really is.
yeah, just making sure. It's certainly something I try to do is there's no bad you. There's
Yeah.
just you. So that's
Yeah.
just what I'm seeing. And even this is what I'm seeing is not even what I'm seeing. It's what I'm imagining I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So even phrasing it that way, and from what you just told me, what I imagine is this.
Yeah.
Am I imagining how you feel, and then having a conversation? But it's just that compassionate discussion.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody that says, like today, are you a different guy than you were in business way back when?
100%.
Okay.
From what do you say? BP before
Right.
psychedelic.
Right.
Yeah, completely different guy. I was radically different. And my wife would say that. My kids would say that. My business associates would say that.
Are
And most
you
importantly, I would say that.
Yeah. I'm thinking like there's a question that I want to run by you. A lot of guys say to me, "Well, I've got to make the money first to provide myself with that space to be able to go and find my purpose, my mission, what it is that I'm meant to do for this planet to where I'm making an actual difference here, not just making some money and providing some jobs for people, which don't get me wrong, that is a difference.
Sure.
However, I think about it in terms of replaceability. And I say, could those people get jobs elsewhere that they would do the same thing, get the same pay, and be treated the same way? And the answer is most likely yes, unless you are a different leader. So what are your thoughts on when I say that people say, well, all right, Matt, you built these companies, stocked a bank account. So what? You weren't the dad you wanted to be, the husband you wanted to be, blah, blah, blah. You couldn't sit on a beach. But now that opened up the opportunity for you to now pursue your passion, your real purpose. Is there validity to that?
No.
Yep.
All those things are external.
Yep.
So it's whether everything we just talked about is an external validation that we're trying to achieve. So whether there's a specific dollar amount, or there's a title that we're pursuing, or there's um, a relationship we're pursuing, that's all external. The reality is the only and sorry, one more thing I want to say. And you talked about making a difference. The only the first thing that matters in terms of making a difference is making a difference in yourself.
Mm.
So, and that's not going to come from any of those external factors. And we don't know how much time we have on this planet. So saying I'm going to putting off taking the time for yourself for external factors, maybe that works out, but maybe it doesn't. And a life where you didn't you didn't give yourself the gift, the time to take care of yourself is a I think it's unfortunate that some people don't have the opportunity to ever get to look and to feel the complete love of the universe, complete acceptance, complete safety, this abundant world that we live in that we forget about with the news cycles and the social media cycles.
Yeah.
So it's really about how do we stop looking for external validation, look internally first, and then decide what we're going to do externally as part of our own process. But I don't think you can do it in reverse order. I don't think you can work externally and then try to work yourself.
I have not figured that out. I don't believe that to be true. And I know that what I've done with myself and hundreds, if not thousands of other people is the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Internal to external. And it's interesting because the way that our message and our mission has evolved, the MOP movement mission has evolved over time, is now it's so refined that we're not helping you become a better dad. We're not helping you become a better employee or a better leader or a better husband or make more money. All of those things naturally happen when the U formula is in alignment. That's it. The U formula is in alignment. So someone asked me the other day, I was at the Reagan Library. No joke, one floor we were riding down. And he said to me, my dad had a mental purpose shirt, and he said, okay, I want your literal elevator pitch. We're standing in an elevator, 8 of us. And he looks at me and goes, I want your literal elevator pitch. And there was this calmness that came over me. And I just said, yeah, man, like we help guys find out who they are and why they're truly here so that they can become the best version of themselves. And he looked at me and he was like, it was like 3 seconds. And I said, yeah, it's actually not that practiced either. I'm just so clear on what we're doing. It's so refined over time that I confidently know that when a man can understand and remove those internal restraints and constrictions from inside of him that the external world and himself have put on him, when he can do that, he can now be free to live authentically and be free to find that path that he's really supposed to determine, destined, whatever you want to say, to be on. And when that happens, you were talking about fulfillment you have never felt before and regret that has left, that you have been piling up, that will only increase in personify in value over time. And so the find who you are and find why you're here has so much more power than just those, what is it, 6 words, 7 words, something like that. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know this is what we're talking about now. It's just that internal restriction and constraint is what held you at this place for 20 plus years and held me, luckily for not as much time, still caused a lot of chaos in my world. And until I realized that the father that I was being was not the guy that I really wanted to be, and then my wife was going to leave, take my daughter, and then I was just going to have to deal with that. When I realized that it all came down to me doing the work on me, like it was me face to face in the mirror, nothing else, nobody else there, no blame, no shift, no avoid. You to you, man. What move are you going to make right now? And that, dude, that was that was what led me to psychedelics. That's what led me to, okay, I'm not sure if I'm capable of doing this, and I know what would be.
Right. And that there's a molecule that can help me along this journey.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, that makes total sense to me. It's
yeah,
yeah, until you love yourself, you can't give love to others. And for me, I couldn't find satisfaction really in anything that I was doing. It was just more of a game.
yeah,
So I really appreciate what you just shared there. That's
yeah,
powerful. It reminds me of on an ayahuasca journey. There was a piece where if I lined up my purpose and my actions and I got them all in a row lined up, that the minions would cheer and could hear them cheering, and then this screen would appear, and I could look at people and be like, "Oh, okay, they get it. They're gonna help me. They're gonna help me." And I think
yeah,
that's the when everything's aligned and there's no fear, then they just the for me at least the opportunities and the ability to just continue to be safe and
yeah,
abundant just keep appearing everywhere I look. But it's all from a place of love. So self-love and then external love.
yeah, yeah. It's cool because the way that my first plant medicine journey came to me was delivered to me, not researched by me, right?
Hmm.
So we're talking about internal, yet it was calling me from the external. Maybe it was the internal. Sure it
I
was,
think that's pretty normal. People talk
Um,
about when the medicine calls and when the
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
And it did, and it was really hot. It was heavy. It was like my whole YouTube channel. I'd never researched this in my life. The only time I'd ever heard of ayahuasca was from Robin Quivers on the Howard Stern show describing her time in Guatemala, and never heard of it. And then all of a sudden, my YouTube, whatever. When I opened my YouTube homepage, it was littered with ayahuasca. And then I get a text from someone I met in Montreal like 3 months before that. And she says to me, "Grandmother Spirit is calling you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then it just kept popping and popping and popping up. And by, the third week of January, I was in my first ceremony. And I want to first address the main thing that was coming up for me was fear of the
Hmm.
unknown, of the unpredictable, of the out of control. That was,
This was your fear before going into the
oh
ceremony, is
yeah,
what you're saying. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All the way up
Yeah.
to the glass on my lips.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
Yeah, yeah.
by the way,
That's
and
healthy
after the
respect.
and after the swallow, like
Yeah.
I got to the airport and I thought, I'm meant to be doing this. This is fine. Travel across the country, get to the house. I'm 2 weeks on this dieta. It's like I've dropped some weight. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty clean, and I'm scared. And then we get to the ceremony, and the shaman says, I'm the last one to go. It's like 16 people. And I'm sitting at this altar and I'm thinking, I shouldn't do this. This is so crazy. What are you doing? And she just says to me, look, you don't have to do this. You just do it or you don't do it. And I said, I think I'm not going to do it. She goes, okay, then just go back to your seat. And then the obsessive version of me said, oh, you can't back down from this, dude. You need this. This is how your life's going to open up from this. And I thought, well, I'm not willing to deal with the fear and the pain that comes along with my life opening up, going back to what
Mhm.
you were talking about earlier. And then she says, look, here's what I'll leave you with. The only way out is through. So for whatever you're dealing with in your life, you will not get out of it until you go through. This medicine will take you through it, and it will take you deep into it. So it's your call. And I just kind of grabbed it and I was like, okay, took a sip, turned around, looked at everybody laying there on the ground, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in a cult. I just drank poison. I'm going to die tonight, right? That's how I started my first journey. And I went and laid down on my mat and I prepared for a death. My heart was racing out of control. It was my ego saying, part of me is going to die tonight, and I know that. And the human in me saying, I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm really freaking scared, and I can't get out of here quickly, and I can't call for help, and I don't know where my cell phone is, and I don't really know many of these people. And so how do you address that with people who say, I'm terrified of the unknown and what I'm going to experience on a psychedelic?
So all of your feelings going into this, your first psychedelic ceremony seem very normal.
Yeah.
And having a healthy respect for the medicine is important. It is I think I'll borrow from the Johns Hopkins people, and they say, look, if you've thought about the three S's, set, setting, and source, and you spent time in each of those, you've radically increased either probability of having a good experience.
Hmm.
Like you're down into the less than 1% having a not good experience. Not saying it won't be a challenging experience, but it'll be one that is at the end is positive.
Yeah.
So set, setting, and source. Source is, where does your medicine come from? Do you feel that it is good, untainted, quality medicine? So whatever you're choosing to do, whether it's ketamine legally prescribed from a doctor, or whether it's psilocybin, or whether it's ayahuasca in a Peruvian or Costa Rican experience, just where's your source? Your set is your mindset. Are you prepared? Do you know what this medicine is? Do you know how long it's going to be? What this experience is going to be like? Have you thought about your intentions? Have you reflected back on your support structure for this? And then your setting is, is the physical location you're in safe and comfortable and controlled? And are you surrounded by people who love you and free of distraction? So that you can take this time for yourself, and you can let yourself truly go to let the medicine take hold of you, and know that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And if you've thought about set, setting, and source, yeah, you have done the things that lead to the highest probability of good outcomes.
Got it. And there are just some times where it's going to lead you to some darker places
Of
than,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's the medicine. You needed to see whatever it is that you were going to see. And
Yeah.
again, I go back to that the teenage experience for me. I mean, I was right back in that moment.
Hmm.
And I was able to look at it and say, like, oh my goodness, I don't have to forgive or condone the actions of this
Right.
person, but I could see for the first time how lonely and sad and unloved, and um, the think through what the drug and alcohol issues that she was dealing with must have impacted her, and the rejection she was feeling. And again, don't have to condemn, or don't have
So,
to condone or forgive, but I could understand her at a human level, that need for love.
yeah.
And yeah, and that changed it from the perpetrator that I had looked at it um prior.
Hmm.
So did I want to? Did I set an intention to go back and look at that? No. But I'll tell you what, this was something I could never talk about before.
Interesting.
And the medicine showed it to me, healed it up, and I can talk about it now without even blushing, because
Yeah.
it's yeah, it was just a thing, just a thing. And
Yeah.
now I've moved through it.
I love that story, man. It's that is the that's those are not an experience like that. Those are or a example like that. That's an experience that I had, which was facing things that I didn't know I even needed to deal with.
Hmm.
You know, and it sounds like your journey and my journey first time was very similar, which was this level of compassion for myself and others that I had never maybe gotten to or allowed myself to get to or knew was even possible until
Absolutely.
removal of certain restrictions and constraints inside of me.
Right. And the notion, the connectivity. So compassion for self and the connectivity to others. The idea that, and we've all heard of, like, oh, these are my brothers and sisters. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that was the first time I ever felt like, oh my God, these really are my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We are all connected. We are all cut from the same cloth. And yeah, completely changed the way I view other people. And I mean, people talk about with psychedelics, oh, look what it does to the trees and the nature and the sky. Sure, all that is true.
Sure.
But what it also does to our relationships with others is so tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many questions I want to ask you. I actually I usually don't go back to the one sheet to ask questions. I want to do that while we are wrapping up here because there's some really great questions on here. Um, one of the biggest things that I wonder is how do you trust what you're talking about in terms of source? How do you, so two questions. One, how do you find a retreat, or how do you find an experience, or how do you know who to trust and how they source things? Like what do you do in that situation? How do you get into this? If somebody wanted to, um, they listened to this and they said, all right, I'm in, what's their next move?
Yeah. And let me answer that with just a quick disclaimer. I'm
Sure.
speaking in regards to harm reduction. I'm not encouraging anyone to do anything illegal. I'm not a doctor or a lawyer. And so people have a few options. They can, if they want to stick with things that are legal in the United States, they can either choose ketamine, which is a legal psychedelic available in all 50 states by prescription. And you can do that in a clinic, either intravenously or intramuscularly. You can do it at home with lozenges that go under your tongue. Lots of options for ketamine. Those are about 1 hour journeys, super powerful medicine, and high rates of efficacy and safety. For those who want to do a different medicine, there are some clinical trials happening. MDMA and psilocybin would be two that you could do in the United States if you happen to get into a clinical trial. MDMA has got an FDA breakthrough therapy designation and should be legal here within the next 2 years. So that's exciting. Psilocybin also has that FDA breakthrough therapy designation, might be a year or two behind MDMA. For those willing to travel, there are legal psilocybin retreats in certainly in the Bahamas, Jamaica, Mexico, pretty much legal. It's technically not, but it's not enforced for religious ceremony. And in the Netherlands, do a version with truffles that's close enough. And then ayahuasca, there are some legal churches in the United States where you can join the church and do ayahuasca, or you can travel out of the country to countries where ayahuasca is legal, or you can find an underground ayahuasca or psilocybin um, experience happening in the United States. So lots of different options. With all of them, it's a couple of things that's super important. One is who's in charge?
Yeah.
What's their experience? Have they been doing this for years? So making sure you know that. Is this somebody who you're referred to that has some kind of credentials, that reviews, that you've talked to somebody, you know them, something that gives you confidence that this is a good, safe person. Asking how many people are going to be participating with me. I mean, good group work is very common in psychedelics. So let's say groups of 20-ish, totally normal. There's some for entrepreneurs. There's a good ayahuasca group that does about 40 people. It's pushing, in my opinion,
That's
but
a lot.
that's what
Yeah,
they
that's
do.
a lot.
And then there's probably the most famous ayahuasca place pushes 80 to 100.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yes.
So at least know what you're going in for. The ones I personally attend are typically in that 20 range. I think that's a 10 to 20 is a good zone.
Yeah.
For me, but at least ask the questions so you know what you're getting into. And then also ask if there's any medical staff on site. Again, nothing typically, most psychedelics are incredibly safe. So the medical staff is more of like if something just normally happens that would have happened whether you're on a psychedelic or not, and you're on a psychedelic, how fast can you get help? That's more the medical question versus, oh, I'm going to take X amount of psilocybin and have an issue. That is not how that works.
So here's
with
a
the
question.
exception of ibogaine. Ibogaine would be the one exception if that is one that you really need be in a medical facility with cardiac monitoring and all that before doing that psychedelic.
Somebody asked me, what if you have an underlying issue medically, cardiovascularly, lung, whatever, that you don't know about, and that you get on this heavy psychedelic and you now find out that there's an issue? Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, so you're talking about, I mean, that's just statistics, right? It's just like you could have also gotten in the car and had that issue emerge.
Yeah.
So ketamine, as an example, can raise your blood pressure. So if you have unmanaged high blood pressure, typically they won't let you take ketamine until it's managed.
Yeah.
If you don't know you have high blood pressure, Yeah, that's not ideal, but typically most of us are going to the doctors periodically. You can certainly ask, you can check your blood pressure before a ketamine session if that's something you're concerned about. But when you talk about psilocybin, the contraindications for these other medicines are not that many. The one thing that research is a little bit split on right now is the potential serotonin impact. So ketamine, if you're on an antidepressant, you can take ketamine. The Up until very recently, it's been frowned upon to take psilocybin or ayahuasca or LSD with an antidepressant because of the fear of serotonin syndrome.
Yeah.
There's some current research out that says, yeah, probably not an issue. It just means you need more psilocybin to cover the effects of the antidepressant. So that's something for you and your practitioner to think about. But there's
Yeah.
yeah, and most of the retreats I've gone to have asked people to wean off of their antidepressants before going to the common classic psychedelics.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. It's interesting to have a conversation with your doctor about this because
Sure.
like, um, the other day I was stopping by the I don't know what you would call it, weed store, cannabis store, whatever you want to call it. Here, I live in LA, so they're all over the place. And we were talking about it, thinking like, would you, in previous generation, would you have taken your parents to a weed store? Like, how weird is that? And we were talking about the acceptance of what we called illicit substances, back when, or whatever they were named. And now it's just so common practice to have conversations about what these plants can do to benefit you. Can you just talk to your regular PCP doctor about plant medicine, or should you find somebody special, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on who your doctor is. You
Yeah,
absolutely can talk to your doctor, and
yeah,
depending on how educated they are. But let's just keep in mind that for anyone born from 1971 to today,
yeah.
we've lived our entire life in a prohibition.
That's what I mean.
So our doctors lived in that same prohibition. We all were fed to just say no. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. We're all taught that drugs, these drugs in particular, have no medicinal use. They're
Right,
going to do bad things. So it's certainly possible that your doctor has subscribes to that same thing that many of us feel when we hear psychedelic drugs. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, isn't that dangerous?
right.
It's kind of our gut reaction. Um, but there are a number of doctors who've been following along. I mean, there's 309 academic institutions studying psychedelics right now. There is a ton of
Huge.
literature, thousands and thousands and thousands of papers on the efficacy um, of these different medicines for all sorts of treatments. So certainly you can talk to your general practitioner. And then if you have depression or anxiety or eating disorders or OCD or substance use challenges, or, I mean, you pick your flavor,
Yeah,
yeah, there's a good chance that there's something happening with psychedelics and that whoever you're working with on that particular item might have an answer for you or
yeah,
might know something about this.
yeah. I mean, I think in a state like California and especially Los Angeles,
Sure.
it's so open and
Yep.
free. I was at a wellness clinic uh, here in LA a couple weekends ago. It was just a nice natural conversation about the different practices that all of us had to be the best version of us, whether it's ice baths or ketamine or psychedelic. Like, it was just all these different things,
Right.
meditations, nature hikes, silent retreats, darkness retreats, and
Float tanks.
flow tanks. Yes, and psychedelics was just one component that people were adding in. This is a game changer. It was a game changer for me, yet it's not the main game changer. It was a game changer where it kind of shifted my world, and then I took that and ran with it. It wasn't like, oh, now I've got to do a session every week just to stay on. The medicine helped me pivot. Now I was responsible to maintain the pivot, right?
Absolutely. I mean, so it's I like talking about psychedelic medicine as a technology.
Yeah,
It's just a technology.
yeah,
Now, what does that technology do? It's not going to cure, it's not a panacea, it's not going to solve all your problems. It's going to hopefully unlock something in you that then you will continue forward with whatever that is. So again, but it's your responsibility to find your way to that medicine. And then it's your responsibility to continue the practice afterwards. But the medicine will help through all sorts of interesting processes, help you think differently, see differently, and feel differently.
Yeah. Yeah. There are so many things I could ask you about the psychedelic piece. I think the real meat of this conversation was our first 40 minutes in the growth of the man, with psychedelics being that sprinkle component. So look, I think we should do a second interview that just dives deep into the psychedelic components. And then maybe I'll get some questions from our community. And um yeah, this was really fun, man. This was really fun. I really appreciate you being on here, sharing so openly. And
Well, you set the tone. I mean, you talked about, you came right out. This is my experience with ayahuasca. This is my experience with
thanks.
psilocybin. This is how it's changed me as a man. This is, I
Yeah,
mean, it's lovely. I think one of the great treats about all of this, about psychedelic medicine, is it, at least for me, is it's changed my perception of time and where I want to spend it so that I can have conversations like this with you and with your
yes,
listeners, and
yes,
that we can and talk to other men about, yeah, this is what's important to me. This is what I'm thinking about. This is what makes me feel good. This is what makes me feel bad. This is how I process that. And this different level of conversation is just lovely,
yeah,
and really something I did not. It's something it's actually interesting, and I know this is, we're wrapping up here, but I will. There's a. It's so easy when I think about women and sex, and that, like, okay, I want intimacy, and this is what it looks like.
yeah,
And now, as I've rounded 50, it's like, no, I want that intimacy, but I'm realizing I can have really intimate conversations
yeah,
that are not sexual, and with a lot of different types of people.
yeah,
And I'm grateful for that. And again, I attribute that to, again, psychedelic medicine helping me see that we're connected,
yeah,
helping me understand my thirst for connection, more connection, and realizing that through healing myself, I can heal others, and that that connection back and forth, we're all healing through this process. It's beautiful. And
yeah.
and healing is not a word I used pre psychedelic, so it's yeah. So I
There's
appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing with the Men on Purpose, and
Thank you.
appreciate introducing your audience to this powerful technology for change.
Yeah, yeah. You know what's interesting is I heard someone having a conversation like this about probably like 8 years ago at this point. And I thought, how does somebody get to a point where they can have that kind of conversation, where they aren't worried about what people are going to think, and they aren't worried about how they look, and they aren't worried about what they say and if they look smart or not. And I just was so intrigued by the freedom that this man spoke from about himself, sexuality, money. And I'm like, wow, man, what a great place to be. And that's what you're describing. We're in that place where we could freely, dude, any subject that you and I talked about, the audience would benefit from, because we're being clear, present, and honest and authentic. And it's just sharing from our experience. I'm not quoting from books right now. I'm sharing from my experience. So your experience is either authentically you or not. You get to make that decision. It's your call. So I appreciate these kind of conversations where I look at a one sheet and go, cool, we're talking about psychedelics. I'm excited. And 40 minutes of the conversation is about growth and development, which is exactly what it should be on this podcast. So very, very grateful to you and your time today, man. Very grateful. Where can people find you?
Ian, the couple different places, mattzemon.com is lots of information on the book. I have a bunch of different videos on psychedelics there, and then links to LinkedIn, Instagram, or where I'm active the most. Um, I have an audiobook, so you can buy the book in book form, and anywhere books are sold. And the audiobook is fun. I read everything I wrote. I have a Dr. Carlos Warder, who's been working with psychedelic medicine for 50 years, reads the forward, and then Leslie Howard reads all the parts that were written by women. So that's a lot of fun. And then for those in Florida, happy, HAPPYY.me is the new telehealth company fighting the unhappiness epidemic with ketamine-assisted psychedelic therapy.
Love it.
And that's launching here at just a few weeks.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. Matt, thanks again for being on, man. Really appreciate it. Really
Ian, thanks
appreciate
for
what you're
choosing
doing.
this conversation. I really enjoyed this as well.
Absolutely. Audience, I hope you enjoyed every minute of that. Make sure you go to Matt Zemon, ZEMON.com. Matt's book, Psychedelics for Everyone. Go check it out, and you'll find everything in the show notes. We love you. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.